Okay, it's December 18th, 2024.
Right.
This is our second meeting. All right.
Yeah, I'm Hassan Arik. I'm an alcoholic.
Can't take you anywhere.
I know. I can't live with myself, so I'm going to come and live with you, Jay.
Okay. All right. Listen, I wrote up everything from last week and I created a folder. Hopefully you guys could see it and navigate in it. And I hope you could see the different tabs within the Google Sheet and the links to the meeting recording and I'll find the transcript if you want that and the notes and I like using these Google Sheets because I find it's very easy to write comments to each other, or if I noted something wrong or missed something, you guys can add to it or throw it to do at somebody or whatever you want to do. But I'm also always open if you think that there's a better way to do it or better notes to be taken or whatever, have at it.
Excellent. Yeah, and Jay, I did take a look at the sheet, the spreadsheet, and the tasks and whatnot. Looks good.
Okay.
This is so exciting. Let's start looking at some data.
Okay. Hassan, what would you like to look at first? Do you want to dive into the out-of-school children data, or would you like to look into?
So, from my side, and suggest it a different way if you prefer it, we can probably follow the same structure as the last meeting, follow the data, and then let's talk about in each of those steps where the data goes from A to B, what your current challenges are, and then we may be able to spot some opportunities there as well. So in these sessions, I'd like to try and benefit from all the learnings that you have.
Sure.
Right, and then we'll bring the challenges up to the surface, and then collectively, hopefully, we can then find solutions around those challenges.
Okay.
But like from the last session, the schools that didn't get in or that they're in the queue, I didn't think about it before. Actually, potentially is a really good baseline numbers, right? Because you can then compare the community that had the school and versus the one that didn't have the school. So hopefully we'll have a few, oh God, yeah, moments as we go along.
Great.
So which one do you want to start with?
Well, why don't I walk you through our Salesforce kind of information, because I think that's the start of the data chain, I think, for a lot of it. And I think one area that might not be sufficient for you is that in all cases, I don't know how some data is collected, right? Like, for example, data on the community. And because buildOn works in 8 countries, it might be very different from one to another. Yeah,
guaranteed. I think that's something that we're almost certain that is the case. And whether, even if it is the same form, almost certainly due to culture and the ways of doing things in that country, it's going to be different from one country to the other. And I don't think that will be a problem. I think our first task is to keep it consistent within a single country, and then we really have to be incredibly careful about trying to draw international conclusions, right? So I think initially we should look at patterns inside a single country, and then if we are taking it and trying to come up with some global conclusions or international conclusions, then the countries have to be normalized amongst each other. Meaning, if culturally one country overestimates or underestimates, or they have ways of, when they say something, it's not the same metric as another country, we would then essentially need to reevaluate the meaning of each KPI from country to country. But at the moment, I think we'll just concentrate on a single market or we'll just be analyzing countries within themselves, if that makes sense, rather than trying to draw conclusions across the regions.
Okay, well, let's start in Nicaragua, and the reason for that is Sergio is our impact officer in Nicaragua, and he's the lead impact officer at buildOn. Forgive me, I'm forgetting his exact title, but essentially the manager of the other impact officers. We have 8 total impact officers. There's 1 in each country. The impact officers have the closest connection, I think, to the information in Salesforce, but it isn't necessarily their job in all cases to manage construction KPIs, right? Because they're impact officers. The construction KPIs might be more of the responsibility of the country director, the construction manager. But we'll start, and I'm going to give you more information than less information in here. Sorry if I go into too in depth, you can stop me. Okay. So let's first look. We're in Nicaragua right now, and what record this is a school block, and school block is the term for a school that buildOn builds. And we will first start in the community where this school block exists. So this is the community data housed in the Salesforce instance, and it's under a data set called community profile. And a community profile can house multiple school blocks, although that's not very common at buildOn, but it's possible. When we look at the community profile data, this is updated probably well before the school starts. And the person in the country who's responsible for evaluating the community and gathering the information is going to update this. So we can see basic information like where the community is located, the region, municipality, blah, blah, blah. That obvious stuff. There's additional, There's additional information here, and you know, this is really, you know, we'll probably want to look at the entire data set because you could, you know, see the inconsistencies or consistencies that we have. You know, based on country, it could be stronger in some areas than others. But here, this is what I would say is very well filled out, and there's probably a high level of, I think, data integrity here on this and in these communities. So we can see information on ethnicity, crops, etc. When we look at enrollment records are done at the community level. When we talk about enrollment, I'm going to over-explain it because it's really for me, not you, so that I know that I'm explaining it correctly. Enrollment the term can be very confusing because it means a lot of different things. But when we're measuring enrollment out in the communities that we work in, we do it at the community level. And as you two are well aware, there could be schools that already exist there. There could be temporary classrooms. There's a lot of different scenarios where a student could be enrolled in going to school. So enrollment happens at the community level, and therefore that's where it's recorded in our system. So when we're trying to correlate enrollment with how many students are attending an actual buildOn classroom, we're going to trip because we can't actually answer that question, because enrollment actually is being measured at the community level, and we don't know necessarily what the infrastructure is in there in this data. So let's look at an enrollment record right now. I'm going to open up an enrollment record right now. Hassan, would it be useful? So we just migrated this last year. Would I explain the migration or no?
No, I don't think that's helpful to me. But
Okay.
In the enrollment numbers, I presume that these are there are multiple enrollment numbers, right? So if you're taking them across 2-3 years, there are 3 different records for the enrollment, and at the point of these KPIs, I think what we talked about the other day be really useful. What facilities are there in the community, as in how many square meters or how many seats available or how many classrooms available. Maybe just do it by classroom for education, just so that you can then correlate the numbers. And with that, these will be fairly self-explanatory for me.
Yeah.
So what kind of go ahead? Sorry, go ahead. I don't want to.
So without explaining the migration, the big improvement, I would say, in what we're looking at right now, which is very new, is that this enrollment is a measurement period. It's a date of measurement. And it wasn't like that prior to this, which made it very cumbersome, right? So you could have, it was the data set that was the problem. But this is a date of measurement. And so we can see the enrollment date right here. So this is basically the day that it was measured. And the rest is all self-explanatory.
Right.
So
if I look at this screen on the community,
yeah.
So you have the basic community details.
Yep.
As it currently stands, it kind of makes sense, but unfortunately, with these things, community details themselves also change over time, right?
Yes.
So maybe it's not that important. So if somehow with the enrollment numbers, we're able to at least keep a track of the key metrics, like how big the school is, and I think that's going to be an essential one to be able to at least guesstimate or to normalize the data. Apart from that, there is a latitude and longitude. That's good, because then we can pinpoint from the maps in terms of exactly where it is. Is there in which of these properties attributes? I don't know which one to use. Do you use attributes, properties as a terminology?
Yeah. Well, you can use either or. Yeah, either or is fine.
Which ones are the key ones when you guys are analyzing the data? So which of the stuff that you found it to be really useful, and which ones do you? What they grow, has that ever been relevant for what you're analyzing?
For me, no, because in my position, I'm more concerned about how many schools have been completed. Does the data have strong integrity? Are people completing the information, right?
Yeah.
If you were to ask Jabril, he's going to have a different answer. And probably more specifically, if you were to ask Sergio, who's the impact officer in Nicaragua, he's going to give you a really good answer. Yeah, of course he looks at it. Like, he's the one spending all the time putting it in there. So I guess that's one of the problems, that I can't provide.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So in this one, for instance, the out of school children, there's no number there, right?
Yes, but I wouldn't pay attention to that. That's a confusing component. That is, well, actually, this metric, now I'm saying this out loud, this metric means that we don't actually have any. I'm sorry. This metric are initially identified out-of-school children, and I don't think it's relevant for this. So it would be the out-of-school children data that would be of high quality for our project now is actually a different data set.
Okay, which would be the pre-built impact analysis data.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
if you're doing a before and after analysis, then you'd want to know how many kids were out of school before school builds and after school builds. If they're not here, then presumably that was in the initial submission of the community to say, we have this many students, this many of them are out of school. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to do the analysis, right? But so let's hope that data comes from the school application data.
Yeah, we'd have to ask the country director that information. Let me.
Okay. So.
Yeah. Okay.
What is this? What's this system, by the way? Is this Salesforce?
This is Salesforce. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So this is our Salesforce instance, and so what we do is we break. Since everyone uses Salesforce at buildOn, or almost everyone, we break it into different apps here, and so we're in our global app right now.
Okay. I haven't looked at Salesforce for about 15 years.
Well, yeah, I know the Salesforce Classic, which is still around. There's still relics of it in this system. It drives me actually bonkers. This is Salesforce Lightning, and I have a love-hate relationship with Salesforce. And that's my career is built around Salesforce. But
how is it? Okay. Yeah. I mean, my involvement with them was that when we were working with Procter & Gamble, P&G, they tried to build a planning system in Salesforce. Spent 2 years with a big Indian company, and in the end failed because Salesforce wasn't a great platform to build a planning system on.
Right.
But for this kind of stuff, I suspect it works quite well.
It can, but I would say that without going into too much depth, it really needs to be built from its early conception when you're building a new system. It really needs to be built from a database administrator perspective for something like this, not necessarily just a Salesforce perspective. Like, you can't just use the bells and whistles of Salesforce. You need to have, like, it'd be better if you already knew how to build a database somewhere else and then you learn Salesforce. It would be much stronger. It
was actually the database side that made it fail.
Yeah, because I think what Salesforce has done a good job at is they're great at selling their product and getting people invested in it. And so I think it makes people with non-IT backgrounds get involved in it, and they start building things where, like, even basic undergraduate courses, first year undergraduate database courses and things like that, data modeling, those kind of things aren't really conveyed in, like, the learning of Salesforce. You just learn the platform. And I'd say that that's probably one of the biggest challenges of Salesforce, is that if you had an IT person initially build it, who built a SQL Server or something like that before, then it can perhaps be way more.
I'll translate that to Jay for you. If you scroll down there a little bit, so on the school blocks, right? So if you just scroll down, and if you do view all, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
So a screen like this, let's imagine that there are 50 of these on this list, right? On a normal application, you'd make one journey to the database that says, give me all the school blocks for query number 3, right? And the way Salesforce works, their object modeling in the background works, was actually 1 by 1. So it makes 50 calls to the database, and it would then mean that this screen takes, I mean, in our case, it was taking like a minute and a half to load in those days, 15 years ago. I don't know. Hopefully, it's not the case now. Because they abstract the system so much, like Eric said, the person never really understands what the implications are on the database layer of how this data is structured. And it even then creates problems around integrity of the data. So you could then, if it's not done properly, you could actually, in theory, put in a school block which doesn't have a community, right?
Yes.
So you then end up with like orphaned records in the system, that kind of stuff, right? But anyway, we digress. I'm happy to carry on this conversation with Eric, possibly without you, Jay.
I love talking about this stuff, and I buildOn. Yeah, I don't get to talk about it very often, but yeah, we should progress. Yeah.
So currently these numbers are typed in by the
not necessarily. So the enrollment figures that we're seeing right here, these are roll-up fields, so they're just calculated fields that come from associated records. The out-of-school children, those fields right there, yes, those are actually just typed in, yeah, so these are just associated records here.
So if you want to add on, let's say, enrollment number, the guy in Nicaragua would come in here, pick the community, and then they would go new.
Yes. Let's
see.
The
enrollment, I think there is a. Yeah.
Let me
That's
just
reporting.
Let me just think about how it. Oh, yes. So.
Okay.
They would just click this, and then it runs.
Right.
Runs you through. Yeah.
But can you just scroll down slowly on those? Sorry. Can you just
on that? Okay.
Yeah,
sure.
on that. Yeah. So.
This is very new. This is less than 1 year old. So that's the downside to this. So this is a big improvement.
Well, so you can immediately see a problem here, right? From a design perspective. Let's see if Jay can spot it. I'm making an assumption here. I'm making an assumption that the fields which are marked asterisks are compulsory.
Yes.
And in a community where you don't have grade 10 or to grade 12, you won't be able to fill these numbers in because that community doesn't have those grades, right? And the people will end up putting silly numbers in or 0 in. Right? So this kind of stuff actually creates data corruption.
Mm-hmm.
So in this the NA option in all of these, assuming that these are compulsory. So can you create a record and delete it? Presumably you can, right? So
sure.
try to record. Yeah, just hit right. Oh, it puts zeros in.
Yeah.
Well, that's also problematic. It also allows us to create a record without anything in it, right? So, but that's okay. I mean, that's okay. So the presumably, so something like this, I'd expect. So let's say you have grades 1 to 6, right? And then somebody misses grade 5.
Yes.
Right, because when they're tabbing across, they miss grade 5. So
yeah.
there should be some sort of control mechanism to say you entered 1 to 4 and 6, right? So that so this kind of stuff, they're fairly straightforward to do, right? You either do it this way at the entrance now,
mm-hmm.
or what you do is you create reports which are somewhat easier because it controls the overall governance, which picks out those records where certain business rules has been skipped, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So cool. I mean, I guess with the enrollment, the one that we just done,
Yeah.
would it be normal to say they would normally have a consecutive numbers? Would they always have, let's say, 1 to 6 or 1 to 8 or 2 to 8? Would they ever have you come across a community where they have certain classes missing? Year 4 is missing from
Yes, there's I mean, there's so many schools and so many different scenarios that yes, there's a lot of different unusual. And when we migrated this data, we looked at outliers, and you know, there were obvious inaccuracies, right? Just aside from like duplicates, there were a lot of duplicates, and yeah, there was middleware of prior that was also causing a challenge in there. So, yeah.
All right.
Sorry, I've got a smudge here on my glasses.
But. I think I understand this, and assuming that this is typed in, we can use this data set as it currently is. If it's not typed in, maybe we should think about some of the. So if there is any kind of data cleaning that happens before this, we should look at those options. So if this data is imported from another spreadsheet or if it's imported from somewhere else. But if it's not, that people are typing this in directly, then we can move on.
It has to come from somewhere because you can only access Salesforce online.
Right.
So you know, it's most likely it's written on paper. And it's probably very different across the world and how it's measured.
Okay. So we can assume that somebody has a form on the ground that or laptop or a phone that they're taking some notes on, and then they get back to the office and type these into the platform. Okay.
Yes. Now I can show you. I can show you Kobo Collect. Kobo Collect. We can do that next. So you might be interested in that. I can show you how that functions.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. So, but what I can tell you is it certainly isn't recorded in real time. The enrollment information, anything in Salesforce had to have been digested at some level, because we were like the places where there's internet access is so slim. And then even do our team members have laptops out there? I mean,
I was pleasantly surprised how many communities I was able to get internet access on. I don't know, Jay. I was actually really pleasantly surprised. The only time that we had a problem was in Nepal, right? Where it was kind of tricky. But most of the places, what was it like in Malawi? Did you get internet access?
It wasn't steady, but we got it. I think we've gotten it almost everywhere, but sometimes it's intermittent.
Actually, the electricity was more of a problem in Senegal, right?
Yeah. Yeah, isn't that crazy?
Yeah. It's that, or like in Guatemala, it was you had to have a particular carrier. There are two main carriers, and only one was present. So,
right. Okay, this is really cool. So I think obviously the main community and the school records, updating those is less frequent and less cumbersome. The enrollment numbers, I would think that if they're certain, I mean, they're clearly doing it when the school is built and maybe a year after and maybe a year before. But I think trying to find a model around ongoing enrollment numbers collected, not necessarily through the buildOn people, but maybe directly from the headmasters or directly from somewhere else, as in from the school, would give much richer data sets in terms of how that community is progressing.
Yes.
But for that to work, it has to be incredibly simple. So simple. I mean, in my mind, the kind of stuff that I would think would work is most communities we've been to, they all had smartphones that they can take a picture, right? A headmaster just takes a picture of his registration document and sends it in for processing. That's it. And then somewhere in the buildOn empire, somebody looks at that document and says, "Ah, yeah, there are X number of people." Or if you want them to confirm the numbers, actually even better might be you need to put 5 numbers, let's say. Not even sort of like the breakdown that you have, because the breakdown you currently have, like the year 1, year 2, year 3, all the years, unless somebody can actually show some value on the year 1, year 2, 3, all the year breakdowns, I would say don't collect it. So unless somebody's actually analyzing that data and has a value against it, although at the moment it looks nice to have all the years broken down, but ultimately is buildOn looking at any of those numbers, right? In our world, it's a classic case of I don't know what I need, so I want everything.
Right.
Right, which is what I get all day, every day. But I mean, somebody in buildOn might say, actually, it's really useful numbers. We analyze it, we use it for this purpose. Absolutely fine. But from the trend perspective, registration numbers, I think for the type of analysis that we want to look at, you probably just need the total numbers, right? Now, would we?
What's
I think so. I think I'm. By the way, I also debate with myself every now and then. I'm now having second thoughts and saying maybe if this data was collected year on year, maybe seeing how the kids are going from year 3 to year 4, are they going or are they leaving the school to work on?
Yeah, and
maybe there is analysis there.
Yeah, and I think one of the problems that we've run into with this, it's obvious, and I'm sure you've already thought of this, is that like when a school block gets built in a community where a school already exists, and they have 1st through 3rd grade in the original school, and then they have 4th through 6th grade in the new school, and then the next year they have 1st, 2nd, and 4th in the new school. And they don't have a 3rd grade because there's not enough students in 3rd grade, or they don't have enough teachers. So, and then you could spin that kind of like 7 different ways, and that has presented a problem when reporting enrollment, I think, up to different stakeholders, like who are curious, is enrollment growing or declining in the school that we built, right? Well, it's actually trickier than that. It could be, there's so many different layers that could be uncovered there.
But that's interesting. So maybe then a better number might be age groups as opposed to grades. Maybe the age groups
maybe
is a better indicator of the numbers.
I really come back to Jabril's. I am kind of convinced on the primary school completion rate, and the primary school completion rate, and I'm spacing the other one right now. I mentioned it on our last call, because that information can infer, you know, we don't know what grade is in what school, what classroom that is, and who built that classroom. It could be hard to figure that out. We don't know how those shifted around over time. But what we do know is this many students had completed primary school prior to buildOn intervening and then after.
Right.
But it might not be, you know, it's also not super detailed either. It doesn't tell us necessarily if there's a problem within primary school or if there's a certain age group. So.
Yeah, I'm sure we're going to come across quite a few oddities. That's why I don't know if this will be really difficult, but concentrating on the ages might be easier. But that will give you a consistent numbering system to say these ages are in school, or at the age of 10, they drop out to work on the farm. I think that was one thing that in Senegal the kids were doing. Really cool. So maybe move on to the next one.
Sure. Yeah. Why don't we? So let's go into the school block here, right? So this is a school that actually buildOn constructed, and so don't pay attention to the historical KPIs right now, please, because I'm trying to change that. We've been trying to change that. So very important information right here. Some of the most important information I deal with. When was the ground break date? When was the completion date? What is the status of the school? We're building so many schools all over the world. Right now, there's 40 being constructed as we speak. So this kind of stuff is very important to me for, you know, I'm just trying to make sure that our numbers are accurate. We have other information here that gets filled on, like we know who the donors are, group donor, individual donor, field coordinators, impact officers, if a trek goes, information like that. When we look at all schools all time, there's 2,754, I think, completed at this point.
2,700.
2,754. And I will say that when you go before 2014, you know, it's much different. And we implemented Salesforce in 2011, 2012. The data was migrated. So there's been a long history. All the schools are in Salesforce. We can look at it, but we're trying to track down trek groups from early times and things like that. That can be pretty cumbersome. So there's photos, which are very useful, and they're very consistent, at least in recent years. So our photo connection is a big part of the global team, and because we need to show evidence of what we complete, it's a really strong set of data, I would say, because the people who fund the school they want to see it. They might never go on trek. You know, there's lots of people that they're not interested in that. They might never leave the US or wherever, but they want to see a picture of it. Marketing, so many other reasons. So we've got a lot of photos. So that could be interesting, I imagine.
I think in terms of the data collection, it might be interesting, because if you're not sure about something, that you could look at some of the photos, which might kind of give you an idea of what's there.
Yeah.
Like if there are certain stuff that's missing from, you know, what was there before, what school buildings there are. Hopefully, if they have pictures of the whole area, that could work. But I mean, Jay and I, we love looking at photos, you know, even though we've been on the tracks. You come back and you go, was that real? Did that really happen? It goes so quickly. I mean, I don't know if you've been on the track, but it goes so quickly.
I have. Yeah, it does go quickly. I've only been on one. Yeah. So, but I feel very, very fortunate to have done it. I mean, I came back a changed person.
Hey Hassan, could you use like machine learning on the photos to look at like your square footage thing, or like total buildings? Like, could you basically ask the machine to, you know, create an AI type of query for information?
I think this is going to be a question for Jamie.
Okay.
When he sees some of these things, I think the school plans per country are fairly standard, so
Yes,
we should be able to calculate the square footage fairly easily.
no, I'm talking about the non-build-on buildings too, because I was just thinking when you guys were talking, like when we were in Malawi, I think our project was the 5th and 6th grade, so there were 2 existing buildings already, and I feel like maybe one was build-on and one was somebody else. But anyway, I was thinking about non-build-on.
Identifying the non-build-on sites, right? Non-build-on schools.
Yeah.
There is a. I mean, before we get to that one, and there are some really interesting AI applications around videos and photos. Much easier to work on photos than videos, but you can do, and we do this on some creatives for the advertising. You can try to work out. I mean, you can certainly count the number of people on the photos, right? You can count how many people are there, how many of them are men, how many of them are women. You can actually do things like how many of them are happy. Are they smiling or not smiling? And so you can do photo analysis, and if you have a library of photos, you can tell the AI go through these photos and try to sort of like create some sort of profile of different school builds on these attributes, right? And that's the kind of stuff that would be useful to ask Jamie to contribute on. Jamie's an AI specialist. I mean, I know that these can be done. But before we get to that one, from my side, I want to try and concentrate on the key data points. I think the kind of stuff that will make a difference, and I certainly felt it that way. I went to a school build in Nicaragua where there was a lot less involvement from the community than, let's say, Senegal, right? And I suspect the Senegal improved the people's lives much more, that school build much more than the one in Nicaragua. Now, interestingly, I suspect from the community, the financial position of the community in Nicaragua was much higher. They were coffee growers. I suspect they had a lot more money than the people in Senegal. So I wonder if there is like a diminishing returns in terms of school building in affluent communities versus non-affluent communities, if that makes sense, right? But I don't know. I mean, some of these, or if the community has less people contributing, does that mean the impact is less? So I'm hoping that the numbers will tell some stories around this kind of gut feeling from my point of view, but we'll see. I don't know. But this has information on, so the groundbreaking and school builds, they're finished. Presumably this is due to how many people are turning up every day, right? How quickly can they do it?
Yeah, but also, weather and there can be funding things too, but that's not recorded here. So there could be material. That's a great question for Jabril. So I don't want to. I want to try to avoid saying anything that I don't fully understand. But I do know that there are, because I look at the data, there are pauses that aren't the fault of the community. For example, the community's there ready to build, but there's a pause for some reason. Okay. So I know that happens. Okay. Not often, it doesn't look like, but it does.
I suppose the main builders, there's also a limited resource that they might go back to another school, you know, a different community, and then come back to this one later on. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, Jabril would be able to explain exactly, like, you know, what happens if materials run out, or there's a problem obtaining something, or if there's actually like a cache problem. I don't know if there are cache problems at that level ever, you know, or something like that. Yeah.
By the way, we're all guessing here, so please tell us what you think. I think it's all contributes, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so
We had one example, Hassan, is the project in Nepal that we funded in the spring was delayed only because of monsoon. It just got to be weather, and they just stopped it just suspends everything. So
right, they couldn't dig probably or something.
Yeah, and I think honestly, I mean, I don't. We'd have to ask for the detail, but I feel like also buildOn redirects a lot of its attention during monsoon because it's not part of the building. Is not part of the routine. It's just harder. It's just, you know. So,
in this one, where you had the construction KPIs, presumably this is not done by day. So
Well, so let's look at construction KPIs. So I'll show you where we're going, even though
sure,
it's important because so we've only rolled this out in Nicaragua and Burkina Faso because it took a long time for us to develop this. You know, we're very, you know, it's hard to roll out things like this. So our new KPI system is built around Kobo Collect. All these metrics here, except for the ones where you can see the pencil next to them, are all calculated fields. So they're all rolling up from other data sets. So we record our construction KPIs by the day. And we can look here, number of actual men, number of actual women, every single day that this school was being built. And we then have weekly construction KPIs right here. And this measures how many, it measures how far ahead or behind we are, and how many numbers of men and women are on the leadership committee, which is held once a week. All of this recording happens at one moment. The user doesn't record two different times. It just splits it up into weekly and daily.
Right. So you mentioned Kobo Collect.
Yeah, let's look at it really quick.
What does that look like?
Okay, so it's hold on one second. Let me just. Okay, so Kobo Toolbox is the web-based version of this. Kobo Collect is an app that can live on Android devices only.
Right.
It's developed by the Kobo Foundation, so it's free software, and they have a really great mission. They're software engineers, and it's for humanitarian aid. And why the software is useful is because you load it onto your Android, and you can record offline data that's on this exact form right here. Right. And as soon as you get to an internet connection, you then can submit your forms and it just submits it to the database.
Right.
There's a bunch of different tools, and you know, I don't know if you know this, but buildOn, prior to me being here, worked with Salesforce to try to develop something.
I heard.
And yeah, you know, it was amazing, but it didn't actually get fully completed, I think. So this is what it does. And so these are just the global teams use Kobo Collect for different things that I can't actually fully answer. Like in Nicaragua, the field coordinators probably submit maybe what they did that day, for example, like to Sergio, who's the impact manager, and Sergio might be, you know, working with data at that level. But for construction KPIs, which is something very uniform across all of buildOn in every country, we look at construction KPIs very closely. This is the, you know, this is what we're trying to roll out to all the countries. And so all you do is you would select your country. I've got a test community here. You pick your community, then you pick your school. You put whatever week number this is. Obviously, I'm sure. Was there a meeting? Yes. How many women attended? 6. 6 men. I'm going to do this really fast. How many days ahead or behind schedule? We'll say we're 5. Was school construction completed this week? If yes, indicate no. Well, actually, I'm going to say yes so that we only have to fill out 1 day. Was Sunday a work day? Yes. Choose the date. Say it was the 15th. Construction phase, we'll say that the school was, say we're doing landscape and drainage. How many women were there? 15. How many men? 15. And then you put in your name, Eric Test. And then you submit this form. And so it gets submitted to the system. And so when we go and look into this community, do you want me to stop here? I'm sorry.
No.
Okay.
Sorry. As soon as you have time. Sorry.
Yes, I do. So, so we have these audit construction submission record that gets created. So this was created from Kobo Collect right here. And so what the then country director needs to do, or the country director needs to assign to somebody,
is to approve this.
Yep, go through this. And once this has been okayed, they can approve the submission. Upon approval, now our construction KPIs get created right now. So if we go into the school block.
I got it. So Kobo Collect now linked to the Salesforce in terms of what it's selecting, the community, the school, like the project, right?
Yes, there is not a two-way connection though. So Salesforce does not push any data to Kobo Collect. Kobo Collect only pushes data to Salesforce. And we therefore, on the data team, have the manual process of updating the communities.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So I guess that's not that onerous of a task because you're just doing it once per school, right? Per community. It's not,
I don't think so. I think it's so I think right now it is very cumbersome to actually calculate. I'll show you how it's recorded right now and reported to the globe here. Forgive me for sharing all my stuff here, but I'm just gonna look here. Okay, so right now we're looking at the this November, so this is the most recent report of our construction KPIs and where we stand globally. And Jabril submits this, and it's a ton of work, which is why we're developing the Kobo system. And there's a lot of places where it can go wrong on here, and so that's why I think it's so much work. Oops. So we can see every single school that's basically been started or completed in 2024 right now. So these are all the schools.
I actually ran a training session a few hours ago about this. You should have attended.
Oh.
Which actually talks about so let's say you have a list like this coming from Jabril, and somewhere else you have the list of schools that you're maintaining on Cobalt Toolbox, right? And for you, if all the instructions that you get is, I'll make sure that this is up to date with the Cobalt Toolbox, it's a nightmare for you to say, actually, you have to go through all of this and then try to see if that's set up on the tool or not. And again, maybe we'll take it out on a separate session. I actually talked about how you deal with this kind of a problem. There is a way of dealing with this kind of a problem, and it's actually very, very effective, which is you keep your source like this the same. So I assume this comes in the same format every time.
Yep.
You keep your other source the same, which is I assume that you can run a report out of Cobalt Toolbox, which gives you a list of all the schools that currently is in there, right? And then through a magic of Excel, if you key formulas, pivot tables, you can actually create a workable solution, which makes the process of spotting what's missing really, really easy.
Mm.
If you and I invest an hour into this problem, we can come up with a solution which will actually take you a few minutes to spot. I'm missing 2 schools. Let me just add them in. There are sets of techniques around how you deal with this particular problem. But
I'm excited to learn. Yeah, one of the big challenges that I'm faced with is I work with in the data set, you need to use the 18-digit Salesforce record ID. And it has to be the 18-digit, not the 15-digit. So the 18-digit will allow VLOOKUP on Excel. The 15-digit won't. And so with a lot of these, so the team in country, like in Burkina Faso, they know exactly where Masaga is.
Right.
But outside of Burkina Faso, what is Masaga? Like if you Googled it, nothing would come up. You know what I mean? Like, or maybe it would, but probably not. So, we need to attach it to latitude and longitude. And so a lot of what I'm doing is like, okay, where's the latitude and longitude, right? Like this needs to be more complete. And, in Haiti is very different. Like Burkina Faso, if we were going to Salesforce, it'll be very accurate because Mohammed actually has a computer science background and he like manages this stuff. But if we were to go to Haiti, it's going to be a different situation, right? And they're taxed for their resources and they're spread really thin. And so,
yeah. So is it correct? Is my understanding correct that somebody maintains this list, and then you're tasked, right? The country directors. You're then tasked with creating these records on both Salesforce or the Cobalt Toolbox, or do you only do the Cobalt Toolbox?
I have only been focused on creating a solution in Cobalt Toolbox, right. So that one of the big asks that the senior leadership team has is for us to be able to view our construction KPIs on.
So by the time this comes to you, there's already a record of this in Salesforce. Not
necessarily. No. It's asymmetrical. I think that's the right term, right?
Okay. So with a problem like this, the first task is to make sure that you have the record from Salesforce that can be linked to this, because the records in your Salesforce gives you your ID that you need. It gives you an indication of whether this record exists in Salesforce or not. So you should be able to do a basic lookup against the Salesforce list to say, these are set up, these are not set up. So you identify what's set up and what's not set up. So if it is already set up, you then need the ID of that new one to say, now let me go and match it up against the the Cobalt Toolbox series. Now, from the how you set this up, you should. I mean, I tell my people to say, you never change or touch the incoming data fields, which is this one. You leave it as it is. So you work around whatever's been given to you, and the next month or the next week when you get this data, assuming it's the same format, then your job is much easier. If you're doing copy paste from Salesforce, you create another table for that with that information. Again, you don't touch that, you don't modify it. So you want to be able to, each step has to be repeatable really easily. Like updating the Salesforce records should just be copy paste within a few minutes, as opposed to if you copy paste and then create custom columns on the back of it, you're now making your job complicated, because the next time that you need to update it, it becomes a lot more complicated. And you do the same thing on the Cobalt Toolbox list. So now your challenges is how to link them together. And you create a series of what we call codification tables or lookup tables that actually joins them together. And those lookup tables will then give you what's missing, as well as how to link from this list to Salesforce list, and then to the Cobalt Toolbox list. But we'll do that in a different session. We'll actually sit through and we'll solve this problem together. I mean, I'm quite happy to. I quite enjoy this kind of. It's like for me, it's like a puzzle.
Let me show you really quick.
So just to finish that off, the Cobalt, and then you set these up on Cobalt Toolbox so that when people are filling that form in, they have the list comes up. By the way, I didn't notice any security on the Cobalt Toolbox. Were you already logged in, or does it not need? Do you not need to be logged in?
No, it doesn't need. No, there is some security. You do need to be a user to submit.
Right. Okay. Not that it would. I don't expect it to be hacked or misused, but.
Well, yeah, if you ever see, I am very concerned about data security, and I worked at a software company before this, and it was entirely different, than coming to a nonprofit where, when you talk about data security, it can be,
I am obsessed.
The only voice in the room. Yeah.
I am obsessed about the same topic, because the moment that our data leaks, our business is over, my company is over. So for me, it's like life or death.
Yeah. So if you ever saw anything that didn't seem like it was up to your standard, then I would want to know immediately, like anything, because it's not easy. Okay, this is what I wanted to show you. So here's the raw data for construction KPIs. Nicaragua, 2020 October 2024. Here is the municipality. Oh, there's the school, municipality, department, and now we can look at PLC attendance here, and we can see here the actual days of the week, number of men. Let me zoom in. Number of men, number of women. And so, unfortunately, it's organized horizontally, which is annoying for me. But
okay. I mean, my first recommendation would be to actually get somebody to properly design this sheet. I mean, this is the standard of Excel knowledge on this is so basic. Like,
yes.
I mean,
yeah. Well, I'm glad
even Jay could do a better job of this one.
Well, I consider myself a expert Google Sheets and Excel person for a long time, but easier said than done. I think is the only thing I would say is to like reformat it.
I'll share. I mean, I'll share some sort of like data collection forms that, or ideas around how this can be improved. And people kind of, when you give this to somebody, especially if they're doing this on a laptop screen, right? It's so easy for people to get lost. So if you try to get people to fill in so much information all at once, it just becomes really, really for them. They'll miss out the columns to the right. They'll just scroll down, or they'll scroll to the right and then forget the bit underneath it. And also, what you'll find is that with something like this, unless you kind of draw the attention to, unless you design it with the view of catching mistakes, people will make mistakes and they won't get picked up. So even simple things like a visual, when you're looking at this, all the like basic design factors around UI elements, this screen is so busy with borders, all different sized borders, right? With things that are bold and not bold, different font sizes, different colors. That's all noise on the screen, right? And the fact that, for instance, the column I, you're repeating the same sentences, one after the other, as opposed to just saying PLC attendance, and then you just have the 1, 2, 3, 1 to 11. So all this kind of information are simple design ideas that help people focus on the information that they're putting in, as opposed to kind of like getting them to, they look at the screen and go, they get scared, if that makes sense. So, I mean, there are lots of easy things that you can do. And then there's practicality stuff like, I mean, there are lots of columns which are really wide, and they need it wide because there's another row 50 rows down that needs that width, right? Yeah. So when you're collecting data on tables, for instance, you never try to put tables on top of each other, because all the column design factors, you end up finding the lowest common denominator, that column ends up being so wide, like D and E, because that same column is being used for so many different purposes, if that makes sense. So there are some ideas around how to make them better. And if it works for you at the moment, fine. But
well, no, it doesn't. No, I think that would be an important concept for me to convey, is no, it doesn't. And like where my skill set is, like I'm more like writing JavaScript like on a Google Sheet, and like that's where my skill level would be, you know, like running code across a sheet.
Right.
But so our problem here that we're identifying is actually, it is very hard, I think, to implement a system across the globe that is then adopted. And so that's, I think, kind of what you're seeing right now. And Kobo, having the Kobo collect form actually addresses that. But for sure, like, this is not set up, you know, it's a disaster. In fact, we even built a system to take this horizontal data and turn it into a database.
Right.
But it's clunky and not easy, and it's easy to make a mistake. It's very engineering, you know, and so I guess I'm just acknowledging, like, that's one of the challenges, is actually trying to change the spreadsheet like system that's already been in place across the globe, because it is kind of already adopted, if that makes sense.
Right.
But I agree, this thing is like, it's not effective for me. You know, to me, it, you know, gives me like small ulcers, you know, when I see it. So I'm like, you know, just yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's that's absolutely fine. So I mean, so this form is no longer being used, or is it in use?
No, it is. No, this is the ultimate source of truth at this point in time, for better or worse. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And you have a version of this which collects the data into a table format.
Yeah. So the summary, basically the summary is in a table like this,
Okay.
right? And it summarizes it, but in the one that I initially showed you, yeah. But you know, we're ready to get rid of that, like, you know, last year.
Well, honestly, between 2-3 of us, if we spend no more than 2 hours, we can come up with a design much better than, a lot more usable than that one. And
great, I'm all for that.
I mean,
yeah,
it really. But what ends up happening with these things is that somebody says, "Oh, can you do a form?" And then, "Oh, who knows Excel or Google Sheets?" Somebody says, "I know. Let me do it," and they put it in, and then it kind of grows from there to, "Oh, can you also add this information? Can you also add this information?" It just gets out of control. And yeah, very cool. Should we take a break at that point? Is that I'm happy to carry on.
Yeah, I can go until 10:30. Well, so I can go for another 12 minutes.
Okay. I also promised that I wasn't going to take up too much of your time, so I also want to reserve.
It's good. It's good. I explained I'm learning some stuff, and that it makes me feel more comfortable when you understand the system kind of more in depth, because it's like there's the ideal state, and then there's some of the challenges of getting to that ideal state. That is one of the hard parts of it all. So, and we prefer to work also Google Sheets. You know, that's a better platform for us at buildOn, because it's on the cloud. It's so much easier for us to manage version history and stuff like that. And that's, you know, that's another thing we're working towards. So like making sure that team members use Google Sheets. This is still in Excel, for better or worse, but should be in Google Sheets,
right?
Even for something like this.
The challenge with Google Sheets is or Excel actually. If you're using it to submit, it will work well. Which is, if you're going to use it similar to the way you're using the Kobo toolbox, which says you put the numbers in, and then you hit submit, and there is an API endpoint that sends a request to, for instance, to Salesforce, then that will work well, because what will happen is that if you're building a school, it will still have the information from last time, right? The person who's filling them in. All they have to do is change the dates and change the number of people who are coming in, and they hit submit again. Automatically creates sends another request to the Salesforce. I'm assuming we can get to the Salesforce API.
Well, yeah, you would. You know, we would leave my. That's beyond what. Like if you know how to do that, and you know how to write Apex, and work in that realm, which I know you're a software engineer, great, and I'd be open to that. But although I learned how to, you know, I wrote APIs in school, right? But that's not my skill set at all. And like
trust me, it's much simpler than you think it is. You're not going to be writing an API, and also you're not necessarily going to write the software pieces for each of these solutions. I think together what we need to do is we need to say, working this way will be better for these reasons. And then if we then need to get somebody to spend a day or two to write not write the API, but to write the code that sends the data to the API, because that's what it will be doing, same as the toolbox, then that might be better. If that is the case, I mean, I can write it. I can put down and write it a day or two. It's no big deal. Trust me, you can write it too. It's really not that Jay's son writes it. Jay, he actually wrote a script, Python script, to go and collect data from various websites. And if you know a bit of Python, you can write a bit of Python code that just connects to the API with the right credentials and pushes the data in. So anyway, so that part I'm not too worried about. But my concerns are largely around the person who's doing the data entry. We must make it really easy and foolproof for them. So that would be my focus, because most errors come through. You make it difficult for them, or it's very easy for them to make a mistake, or they don't notice it, or so it normally happens at that point. All the subsequent steps we can look at. I mean, it could even be a process where the button, let's say the Excel button, sends an email with the data, a JSON data set. I'm assuming you know JSON, right? Do you know?
Yeah.
Okay, right. So it could just be that it puts the data into a JSON string and sends a message as an email, and we can easily have an engine that sits on the back of the email queue, reads the messages, and then sends it to the Salesforce. The reason why I'm saying that is,
and Hassan, just so you know where I am though, we never do any of that internally, like writing any JSON. Again, in school, yes, I did. I know what JSON is, but I use, like, now for anything like that, I'm using Zapier to run all of those like automations. So, but I totally get what you're saying. Yeah.
I mean, the technology of how we get it from there to Salesforce doesn't really matter, as long as it's reliable. So for me, it just needs to be reliable, and we need to find a glue technology that takes the data from the form and then pushes it into the approval stage, which is what you were showing us on the
Right.
Salesforce, right?
Yes. Yeah.
But like I said, it could be a VBA within Excel. It could be
Okay.
But I think the initial focus that should be a redesign of that form. But cool.
So basically, what you think is, we should stick with Excel, kind of forget Kobo Collect for that seems too just use Excel. The field coordinator can record the data right there, straight on the sheet, close to the source, and then they just submit, and that would push it into the audit, construction, submission, approval process, right?
That is definitely very doable, but I don't know, the people who use Kobo Toolbox might say, actually, that's easier for us.
Yeah.
But in terms of the Excel form, that can certainly be improved tremendously.
Yeah.
And that can certainly be made to work like the Kobo Toolbox, right? And for instance, it can be, we talked about offline features. It can just be a spreadsheet that sits on the person's laptop, and they update it in the village, and then when they get back to the office, they go send. It just sends it, right? So you inherently have that feature in there as well. So it's not so the offline feature of Kobo Toolbox. I'm going to forget that name so many times because I keep having to look at the name on my other screen. But when we talk to those people who use both, might actually tell us that there are some benefits that we're not aware of. But if people say actually we prefer the Excel, we should definitely redesign the Excel. It's like that's definitely.
My guess is people would ultimately prefer a spreadsheet, because I think it's just more preferred. Yeah.
because you can copy paste, you can just drag and drop. It's like
and I think, you know, a lot of people, I don't know what the percentage is, but you know, when we think about the team globally, their exposure to different technology can vary, you know, widely. And so spreadsheets are something that is just something that's kind of around. You know, when people think of computers, they think of spreadsheets. It's versus, you know, Salesforce. You know, there's not everyone can use Salesforce, because what is that? What is Salesforce? You know, why do we use that?
I love spreadsheets.
Yeah.
We use spreadsheets to write software with. As in, if we're actually writing C# code, quite often we'll use, and actually we have a our analytics teams use Excel models to create analytics databases. So they actually use Excel to then design the database, and then they create scripts from that Excel and then run them on the database server to then create the databases. So I mean, I absolutely love Excel. So I agree. All right, I have to. It's 6:30 for me.
All right.
I'm all by myself in the office, and I'm hungry.
Oh yeah, you got to go eat. Gotta go eat.
I am really loving this conversation, though. I am really loving this conversation. So you're gonna go away on Friday, right? Friday's your last day.
I am. I'm gonna be with my family. You know,
Okay.
and it's my extended family, so I'll be a little bit MIA, I think, during that time, just because I don't see them much.
Okay. I'd love to spend some more time with you on Friday if that's possible.
Yeah. Sure.
But for that one, I'd love to get some data that we can then use during holidays.
Sure.
Because I am going to make the guys work during the holidays, because they're going to be sick of eating and drinking. They'll want something else to get into, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, Jay? You're on the clock as well, right?
So what data do you think you?
But now, what are the options around Salesforce? How can we get that data out?
Well, you could get. I mean, you could get our global school block information. I don't think that's going to be that useful. So, okay, you can get community information, school block information.
Is there a data extract option, like a report that you can run on it?
Oh yeah. Just take I can hand it to you in CSV format.
Great. That's plenty.
Yeah.
So any data that you can get out to CSV or Excel would be amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So from our side, we'll just take that in and put it into a data model, and we'll start trying to find patterns. But as we're doing it, I think it'd be good to check in with you to say, this is what we're doing with this data. Is this still making sense to you, or do you see problems with it?
Sure.
And I think if you're able to extract the data by Friday, that'd be amazing. Or we can
I mean, we could extract the data in just 10 minutes.
Great.
Yeah.
Right. And then if you're able to send it ahead of time, I might be able to put it in to an environment and maybe have some initial questions.
I can do that today. Once again, the out-of-school children data, specifically which we didn't look at, which is recorded in Google Sheets. That is, I believe, that's probably the strongest data set when you're looking for indicators.
Okay. Can we get a copy of that Google Sheets as well?
Yeah, there's one for every country. And the one challenge that we're faced with right now is that 2024 is being recorded right now.
That's okay.
So if you were to look at 2024, you're not looking at complete data.
That's okay. We assume that it's going to be out 6 months out of date.
Okay.
So that's fine.
so if you, I'll share those sheets then
Great.
with you.
And what we can do, Jay, if you share them with Jay, Jay will put them onto the shared
Well,
Google.
I'll just put them right on the shared drive since I have access.
Perfect. Perfect.
And so that shared drive is only shared between your trusted folks, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's just this thing. So it's just going to be us, and any work that we do, we'll also put it back on there, so that you can actually download and look at them as well. So we'll be using Power BI or SQL or Access, one of those easy to manipulate database structures, right? Fantastic. And yeah, in return, feel free. I'll try to give some time back to you, and we can talk about anything that you want on Friday.
All right. Great. I'll come up with some.
We'll try to solve. We'll try to sort of like dive into one of your challenges. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot. There's a lot of challenges, but the construction KPI that we were talking about, that's a very important one. It really is. It's an output, not an outcome for us. So it's not valued by everyone as much, but it's really valued in terms of the operation of the organization. What are we on track? Are we not on track? Those kind of things. So it's really important.
Excellent.
Are we gonna do? We're gonna do the same time on Friday.
Sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I'm free then.
Okay. And do we want to set a first meeting in January, or we're going to do that on Friday?
I'm happy to plan out as far as we need. Yeah. So January, I will be back on the 6th, on Monday the 6th. And this time is good for me in general.
So you want to do Tuesday the 7th at the same time?
That would work for me. Yeah.
Sure.
Does that work?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hang on, it's 5 my time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. I'll send those out.
Oh, hang on. No, sorry. I'm going to be in Turkey for the first 3 weeks of January, so I'll be 3 hours ahead.
3 hours further ahead.
Further ahead. So I'll be 8 hours. I'll be 8 hours ahead of you, Jay. Oh God, Eric, I'm going to be 11 hours ahead of you. What time is it there now? Hang on, what time is it there for you?
It's 10:30 in the morning right now.
He started at 9 a.m. today.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay.
I'm useless before 8, but I can, I start working at 8, but I'm useless. Like, sometimes I do start at 7, but it'd be more of a waste of time for you. I think I'm not as.
If you can move it 1 hour back at this, it will give me some time.
Sure. Yeah. We can meet at 8. No problem.
Okay. So Tuesday, January 7th it would be 8 a.m. PT, 11 a.m. ET, and what is that? 7 p.m. your time in Turkey.
Correct.
In Izmir.
Yeah. Although I may suggest to move forward again, I need to check our office opening hours. I think they close the building at 7:30. So if I'm in the office, then it'd be better that I travel out. But yeah.
All right. What do you say? What do you want us to put?
For now, put at 7. That's probably
I see. Okay, but you might come back and say
do it later.
Later,
because then it gives me time to travel back home and.
I see.
I can take it from there.
I see. Okay. All right. So Eric and I are like putting a hold on that second hour in case you.
Right.
Do.
How does it work the other way? If we did it in your evening and in my morning.
Oh, for me?
Yeah.
Yeah. It depends. It depends on the day, and it depends on what I got going on here with my family. But it's a little like, so in the evening is a little bit harder for me to plan ahead, but I can. It's not as like during the workday I can kind of be really consistent, but yeah, we can work.
If it's 9 a.m. If it's 9 a.m. your time, Hassan, it's going to be
11 hours
for me and 7 p.m. for Eric. So I might be out at that point, depending, but that's fine. It's mostly you guys.
uh
Oh, you know what? I'm going to turn the recording off so no one has to listen to this part.
Okay.
True. The
Okay.
that
All right.
that
Wave. Bye.
bye.
Recording.